What's going on, guys? T2RX6 here, back for a Transformers review, and today we're taking a look at the Year of the Snake Omega Supreme. And this is just a quick look at the box, and this thing is just huge. It is the Energon Omega Supreme mold here. Just get you a whole look at the box. As you can see, everything's probably just going to be hard to get it all on frame here, just due to the size, but hopefully bear with me. So this box is pretty nice. Nice foil there, good artwork, stuff on the back, and I really like the fifth panel thing here, which allows you, if you're a Mitten box collector, to have Omega displayed, and then kind of a little bio here. Let's see if we can actually zoom in on that so it's readable. I don't know if it will be. Gonna be hard to read because of the lighting in the silver, or gold I should say. But there you go, just a quick look at the box there. So to start this Omega Supreme review, we're gonna just take a look at the individual alt modes, because if you're familiar with the Energon Omega Supreme, you know he pretty much just splits in half, and each half is a different alt mode. Now this is called the crane mode, but there's obviously a whole bunch of retooling here. I'll show you the Energon one in a second, just to give him this cannon arm, which does spin at the tip up here, and the claws and stuff open, so that's pretty cool. One thing you're gonna note right off the bat is each half has two different color guns. They got the yellow, and then they got the orange. Now really both guns should have been orange on this and gold on the other one, but since these both make up half of Omega Supreme, when they were standing up it meant you had a yellow or a gold and an orange gun on the front, and I didn't like it, so I just pulled one off and switched it around just so it's uniform from the front and back. That's up to you. So anyway, back to this toy. This is one of the ones that got, I would say, the major retooling. In fact, I don't even think the other side got anything. Aside from this here, Omega Supreme's head actually sits underneath. If you're familiar with the Energon toy, the original was a little headmaster like this that made up Omega Supreme's head. So it never sat on the body. On this particular one, you've got this remolded piece here, which pushes up and down, so you can actually tuck away Omega Supreme's head so it fits in the alt mode here. Oops. Sometimes that gun gets caught. And then, yeah, that'll give it enough clearance to fit right underneath there. Rolls pretty good, makes a lot of noise. Let me bring out, just for the comparison here, the actual Energon version so you can kind of see. In the alt modes, I really kind of dig the Energon version a lot better in terms of its overall look. Here's the panel with the head. You've got this little like drone type head that they had for Omega Supreme, but obviously there's not much that really has to be tucked away. And then the big difference is you've got this claw on here that extended out somewhat poorly, and you know, that's your actual crane, which does make sense to kind of call it like a Cybertronian type crane or something like that. That's not really a crane so much. Okay, so now we're on to the space battleship type thing. It can either be a land battleship or a space one, whichever you prefer. Again, there's really not very much retooling on this, it's just painted a lot differently. The electronics in here were all taken out. You still can see the speaker box area, but it's all gone. So you still have the button type thing, but it doesn't press. All that's gone. There's a little switch on, well, a little wheel on the side that by moving it around will move the guns. Of course, you've got the spring-loaded missiles. How exciting. And it's actually easier just to move all the guns by rotating one than this little switch. This back one, however, is on independent. You're doing that yourself. Now, one thing that's really strange, if you look in here, you can see that the gun's positioning is limited by that peg post. And I don't know if my Energon version is broken, or if this one is just molded wrong or what. If someone has one of these or the Energon ones, let me know. Because here is the Energon one. I definitely like the ship mode of the new one better. But you can see I can actually bring his gun all the way down. And if you look in there, that little peg is way shorter, so it never contacts the bottom there. But yeah, I'm not sure. So here is the actual Energon version for comparison. It's not bad looking, but really I definitely like the deco of this new one. Now, if you're familiar with this, they have this kind of combined type mode here, and let me get this set up here. So one thing that's interesting about this guy is that they leave all the stuff intact for the combined mode, which takes your Omega Supreme Headmaster and you kind of flip his arms out to the side like this, and then you kind of just bring his legs down. And what that actually does, after you move these little flaps out of the way, is you should see that he pretty much lies right into this area here. And then you can actually flip the top piece down. It's really stiff on mine. And this is actually for the combined mode. That is all still left in. Obviously we don't have a Headmaster anymore, but it's still there. So the combined form, this is going to be a challenge to show, because as you can see, it's hard to show each half of Omega Supreme on the table, let alone a combined form. So what you're probably going to have to do is deal with a shot that's just going to be a picture of him sitting on the floor in his combined form. But what I can do is, let's get him out of the way, show you how the combined form works. So you take your train portion thing and you plug it into the back, and that is it. So now you've got an Omega Supreme. And I am getting everything all caught up in the way here. Cameras, lights. Here we go. So you got the ship, which goes along, transitions right into the like train thing. And that is super impressive. It's exactly what you think it would look like. Regardless, I will show you some shots of it on the floor compared to the actual Energon version too. So now we'll go back and we'll take his battleship mode here, and they've all got this quote-unquote third mode. It's not all that terribly impressive. Well, we'll show it to you anyway. So what you gotta do is disconnect this piece here and swivel it around to the other side, like so. And I believe we want to flip this, so we don't want to peg this in. It's really essentially Omega Supreme bending, half of Omega Supreme bending sideways is essentially what they're calling a third mode. So now we got that, we're going to take this and kind of bring it down like that. And spin this around so it flips the other way. And then kind of angle this back. And there you've got the artillery mode, is what they call it. It looks kind of vaguely like a gun. It's really not a very impressive mode. If you're curious about it, here is the Energon version in the artillery mode. So yeah, you can see nothing too terribly exciting there. Now we'll get to the crane. I forgot, the combined mode of these cranes are called the Cybertronian Super Train mode. So now we'll go to the crane. This one's a little more interesting, I suppose. I don't really think it's a crane still. It's probably more of an artillery than the other one. So we start by rotating up his foot, like so. And then it's a matter of bending this backwards like that. bending this up and out of the way and bending this forward. So it looks something like this. I guess we're supposed to turn this upside down too, actually. So you kind of got something like this going on, and it's just a big mess and doesn't ultimately end up looking much like anything. But that is supposed to be the Cybertronian crane form here. I don't know, again, just looks like Omega Supreme, half of Omega Supreme doing yoga when he got cleaved in half, I suppose. So we'll take him out and we'll bring the Energon one back, and I suppose this kind of works a little bit more like a crane, in my opinion. Still doesn't look like a crane, but at least you got this arm thing still going on, if you can make it work. There you go, it's a crane. It's pretty horrible. I guess I don't have an imagination anymore. So if you're as okay with forgetting that he has those third modes as I am, we're just going to actually focus on getting him to Omega Supreme mode. So we'll first start with the boat here. You take this off, flip this on around, and rotate it back to the other side here where it plugs in. Then what you're going to do is you can kind of stand him up, and let me make sure we can get this on camera because he's going to be quite large. You can see we have this joint in here. What we need to do is split this on out to flip it and then pull that joint down so it gives him extra height. And make sure it's kind of angled like this, otherwise he's going to sit funny. And you can see we've got half of Omega Supreme coming together here. All we're going to do now is just take this top section, split this on over. We can flip the guns how you want. I personally like them looking forward. And then we'll take this down on the side here. And there we go. We've got one half of Omega Supreme here. So we'll just take that and we'll put this away. Oh, one thing. Rotate his leg forward. We would have noticed that when we put them together. So let's take the train thing, and you can kind of position these anything you want, any way you want, I should say. I think they're little cranes or blasters or something. I'm not entirely sure. I just kind of keep them like that personally. So we start, flip the cab, that makes his foot, rotate so we have the front. And if we zoom up here, you'll see, oh my goodness, we've already got Omega Supreme's other half, with the exception of his head. So what we're going to do is just flip that out, push on the bottom panel to pop his head out, like so. And then there's this little black gun here that once it's popped out all the way, we can lift up. And if you lift it up too far, it's just going to come off. It's just on a little clip. So all it does is plug right back on in, like so. It doesn't really hold very tightly. But there you go. In fact, mine doesn't really hold very well at all. So we flip that up. We got Omega's head cannon thing. And the second half of Omega Supreme. So now what you're going to do is take your other half here, which I have conveniently lying on the floor. And we make sure that this tab here goes into that hole there. And then basically all these little connectors have respective joints. So the hardest part is getting this thing into this hole properly. Not that it's a small slot to go into, but it can be tricky to do with such a large toy that you're trying to get together. And there you go. You got Omega Supreme. Now, if I have one complaint about this guy, it's that I feel like his head is just a little bit small. Somewhere around here in the rubble, I've got the headmaster, and we'll take him and just kind of, just like you do a headmaster, fold everything up and then take this like that. You can just see the size difference between the heads. The old one was a lot bigger, and I kind of wish that they left this guy intact. I understand what they went for with the head there. It is more G1 accurate, I suppose, but it does feel a little bit small. But all of that is a constraint of putting him back into his vehicles mode. The visor here on this actually is able to open. Let me see if I can get my hand inside there. It's kind of tricky. There we go. And you can reveal his face, which is really nice. They did a really good job on getting that detail on his face. It just looks nice. Unfortunately, now I'm looking at it on camera, I can see that mine has some paint flaws there. I don't know if I can match that paint, but that's okay. You really can't see it when the visor's closed, and certainly when you're not zoomed in like this. Really nice face though, and looks good with the visor down too. Let's just get a side view here so you can see with the gun and stuff. So back this on up. So this is not a terribly articulated toy. This is what I wanted to show you. This one was red, this one was gold. I just took them off and put them on the back. So now the ships have two different color guns, but that's okay. And we'll just keep going down the body here, just to give you a nice full view. And just to show you just how big he is. Huge, massive. For articulation here, like I said, it is not the most amazing amount of articulation of a toy that you're gonna see, but it's certainly usable. And start up it is, well, you saw his head, so we'll skip that. His arms, you got a big, huge ratchet here. Unfortunately, these guns at the top kind of get in the way. You could position them sideways, and then you can get the full range of motion, but if you want them facing forward, it's limited. Nice arm joint here, clicky elbow. You do have a rotation on the wrist. I guess that's the wrist, it's actually more the elbow. Nothing else any further down to close the hands or anything. Again, same type of deal up here, nice rotation. Each of these claws here is articulated, so you can open them on up, and you know, if you really wanted to, I suppose, just like the much more expensive third-party one, you could grab figures with them if you so chose. And probably, if you're more careful than I am here, get them to hold. The fingers are a tiny bit weak, but there you go. Omega Supreme's just crushing Starscream now. So that's doable. Coming down to his legs, there's obviously no hips, or waist rotation I should say, on here. You do have the outward side to side and kind of an awkward forward back, and then the knees, and then just a little rotation down here from the transformation. So articulation is a little bit limited, but he is Omega Supreme, and I don't really feel that Omega Supreme needs to not have somewhat limited articulation. One thing, they kind of gave like a metallic orange paint on the claws. I kind of wish it was just cast in orange. I think that would look nicer. I'm not really sure what they may have molded these with. I don't think anything, because they actually feel like a different plastic than the rest of his body. So I don't know why they cast it in black and not just orange, but it doesn't look horrible like that. For a size comparison, here he is next to the Energon Omega Supreme. That's terribly, terribly informative, right? Let's get him out of the way. And you can see just how they're like the two gun type thing there, being that he's two colors too. But a more reasonable comparison, because we don't have all that many Omega Supremes, would be, no, it's not the crazy third-party one. I'm not spending that money on Omega Supreme. I don't really like the aesthetic of the Fall of Cybertron Omega. Here is the Generation 1 Omega Supreme. And you can just see how he towers over the original Omega Supreme. Let's get a little more of a side-by-side here, just to show that off. you can see the colors, the color placements are pretty good. Everything looks pretty solid. You got like these accents here to just kind of mimic the yellow shoulder pads and stuff that the original had. Overall, I really like the look of this new one. Now, what is lacking is we don't have any of the tracks and stuff like that, and he has no city mode. But there's a third-party company that is putting out, actually, is it Make Toys? It might be Make Toys, that is supposed to be putting out like the tracks and stuff to add on to his back. And that really sold me on this figure. Just to get that entire G1 aesthetic where we're going to have the tracks on the back and he's going to be able to have like a pseudo base mode and stuff like that. That is really cool, and I will definitely be interested in that. This hatch, of course, opens if you want to put the headmaster he doesn't have in there. Now, if you are getting the Year of the Dragon Optimus to go with it, I don't have that. I have the Energon version here. You do still have the option to combine them, and that involves you splitting this in half again. And what you're going to do, now I've never tried it on this one. I know it's still all there, but we're going to take this and fold this down and push this on in so the panel at the bottom is flush, and you just kind of tilt it on up like that. Now you take your Optimus Prime here and stand up, Omega. We take his head, we flip this out, and we open up this little thingy here, and we just kind of put it on top of his head to give him a big Optimus Prime head. And that's about it for the transformation of Optimus. And what you do is you open these panels on here, and there's one on each side of Omega that needs to be opened. And essentially, Optimus just fits right in here. And then you close this on back up again with Optimus inside. I am not a huge fan of this mode. First off, on this Omega Supreme, I feel like Optimus, well, you can still see Omega's disjointed head at the top here, which looks a little bit awkward. And I never liked the look of Optimus in there, even on the other one. I just think it's kind of silly looking. I suppose you could, if you wanted to. In fact, let's do that. We'll take this and we'll turn this around and just kind of turn it into a gun that sits on top here. You could do that, and that hides it a little bit better. But it looks really bad when you get to the back here and just see that Optimus is just sticking out of his back like some horrible growth. I mean, it just looks really bad. But, of course, Optimus also came with his various drones like this. And yes, these are still built in, that you can flip up these pieces like that. And you can plug in the submarine on the top of his head like that, which, because of this bigger piece, doesn't work so well because now it's covering Optimus's head a little bit. And you can take the drill and give him a crazy drill claw arm like that. And then on the legs here, there's two more that we flip out at the bottom, and you can take this guy and forget how to transform him, even though he's ridiculously simple. How do we do this? There we go. Just haven't messed with him for so long, things are getting stuck. You put him like this and plug him in down here, and now we've got even bigger feet. Same goes for the helicopter. And honestly, I don't understand. I've never watched Energon, so I don't know what adding all these little parts to Omega does. He's now got extra stable feet, so no Decepticon can knock him over or something like that. I don't know. I don't really dig all this combined stuff, but you can still do it if you so choose. Yeah, so there's that. So that's been Omega Supreme, the Year of the Snake Edition. I think he's totally cool. Definitely definitely a good purchase if you are a G1 fan and you don't really feel like spending the money for that third-party one, which it's nice, but it's just not my aesthetic, and this is a lot closer to G1 Omega Supreme in my opinion. So I can't wait. You guys will probably end up seeing this guy again down the road when we take a look at the third-party set, but I don't know when that's due out, so it might be a while. So this is T2RX6. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I'll see you next week.